Good afternoon, everyone. I'm absolutely delighted to be here at Devfest. This is amazing. I missed last year's one because I was literally moving here at the time. So it's very exciting to be at the Melbourne Devfest this year and to be talking to you. As Robin said, my name's Nash. I am a developer evangelist for a company called Twilio. Can I ask who's heard of Twilio before? Not noting that Robin said it. All right, cool. That's good. That's good to hear. If you don't know about Twilio, we're a communications platform. That means you can use Twilio in your apps to send or receive text messages, make phone calls, do video chat, text chat. We have wireless SIM cards available now. We do two-factor authentication. The list keeps getting longer. It's really hard every year as they keep releasing more stuff, and I have to include that in what I say. If you want to hear or know about any of those things, or if you're using Twilio for a really cool thing, do come and chat to me afterwards. I would love to hear about it, please, or ask me any questions. But I'm a big fan of the web platform. I think that's it's an interesting place to be at Devfest because we have kind of the web fighting Android, or at least we're two rooms apart in a way. Like web versus native is a big thing, but I always like to bet on the web platform. It's the one that is available to everyone at all times on pretty much every device, and it is my absolute favorite thing. And some of the things the web platform can do kind of blow me away at times. And I was really excited when I got to join Twilio, which is about 4.25 years ago or so, because I learned that we had a WebRTC thing. You could make phone calls from the browser, and I couldn't believe that. That's magic of the web, and a little bit of Twilio there. But it's all based on WebRTC, which is kind of a phenomenal spec. That not a lot of people necessarily use. Like, this is not as groundbreaking to people as, an entirely new way of laying things out in CSS, because that's what everybody does every day. But WebRTC is this ability for us to create peer-to-peer connections in the browser and send over media, data, or audio, video data, peer-to-peer between browsers. I think it's absolutely amazing. And what's even more amazing is that now support actually is kind of across the board. That all of these browsers allow you to, in some way, make a WebRTC connection and effectively set up a video or live real-time data stream between two browsers or more. I say, like, in some way, because every now and again, one of the browsers has a different opinion about things, and whilst all the other browsers are kind of agreed on WebRTC as the standard, Microsoft came in and went, "I see what you're doing there, but we can do it better," and built the ORTC spec, which is sort of felt as WebRTC 1.1. It's an improvement upon it. It's just not compatible. Eventually, the Edge team relented and implemented a version of WebRTC that allows you to kind of connect and communicate with the other browsers as well. So it sort of works, but I'm going to ignore it for a while. I feel like it's important to note with WebRTC that there's a little bit more to it than just writing a bit of JavaScript in your browser. That in fact, there's quite a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes. If you've joined, if you've used WebRTC, which you probably have, like Google Hangouts is effectively based on it these days. Many other platforms are. That there is actually a lot more to it than just like the browser doing it. You end up having to have a server which deals with the presence of users and the ability to exchange kind of their peer-to-peer details before you can actually make that connection. And so there's a lot to it, but thankfully there are a lot of products and projects out there that help you to create a WebRTC kind of connection without having to worry too much about all of that. I like Simple WebRTC is a really good example. It's a free project that you can use. It actually gives you all the back end for at least a free tier's worth of stuff. Twilio, of course, have their own video platform as well. And so we get to WebRTC today, which kind of works. And I wanted to just, when I say it works, I want to make sure it works. I am on the internet right now, and this is my demo application that I've been building for this thing. And there's me. That's cool. That's a good start. We haven't done any WebRTC yet. I'm just going to connect to that. And then I'm connected there. Let's do it in Firefox as well. Firefox likes to ask for permission for things. And that's me there. And so if I connect, hopefully we'll end up with two of me or two blank walls on the screen when they are connected. It's not going to connect. Go on. Yes, good. Firefox messing about with me. All right. I also have it here on my phone. Let's see if this will work. It won't. Even better. Oh, no. Yeah, that's interesting. Oh, no, I'm connected. Oh, that's a good sign. Yep. All right, cool. It's all going to fail. Let's carry on. I don't want to really talk about the actual WebRTC connection today. That's actually, I've given that talk years ago, and it's a lot of technical details. What I want to talk about is the stuff that we can do in the front end with this kind of video, with videos and with these connections, because I found that quite interesting. Like, we have getUserMedia, which is basically the API behind which we can get hold of the audio and the video, the camera feed for a user. And it's one of my favorite things. The first time I ever gave a talk at a conference, I was so excited about getUserMedia and being able to do it. The only browser that had implemented it was actually Opera in like an experimental build. And I downloaded and ran that in order to get excited about it on stage. So it's been around for a while, but now we can do some stuff. And one of the first things I think is important, like, you don't have to be building a video chat application, but if you want to use video or cameras inside of a web application at all, then selecting that camera that you're using, or that your user wants to see, is pretty important. And it should be easy, but the browsers never really like to make things super easy. So we'll sort of see how this happens. This would be the ideal. So this is what we normally see. This is the easiest way, right? You say, navigate to get media devices, which is the full API that's controlling this, getUserMedia, and give it an object saying video is true. And that gives you a camera, which is normally okay if you're on a laptop or something like that. But when we come to a mobile device, for example, then we have two. Or this one has several, but effectively two. And so what would be really nice if we could tell what devices we had and then select one of them. That'd be cool. But this works actually in most places. You can enumerate all the devices on a thing and then kind of give a user a choice of camera that they want to use. But one of the browsers didn't like this so much. It's always good to see that Apple care about privacy and things like that. And what happens is if you run this code on an iOS device or in Safari, then all of the devices return with a label on them. To tell you which camera they are, front camera, back camera, whatever your webcam is called, unless you're in iOS or on Safari, in which they just forget the label and you get a bunch of blank stuff. So Safari doesn't want people to be able to enumerate devices without first giving access to them. So we get to learn about the exciting world of media constraints instead. Because when you build up this object here and say, I would like some video, you don't just have to say true or false. You can actually give it a whole object of things which you might be interested in seeing. And the first one of those is facing mode. This is most important for if you are dealing with devices like this. And the facing mode allows us to ask for a number of things, such as a camera that looks at the user, a camera that looks at the environment, and that maps pretty well to the front and back cameras on a device like this. Then we have left and right, which I've never seen actually in use, but should give you a camera that looks over either the left shoulder of the user or the right shoulder of the user. And I don't know if it's ever been implemented, but it apparently exists. I want to just give a quick demo of this. This is actually my application in the background. And so I have my media options right now here at the top of the screen, just are asking for video and audio. But if we removed video and said, actually, I would really like to get the user camera, then hopefully, let's make this work again. I'm not going to try and connect it actually up. If I access the media, it's going to ask me for permission, and I bet it's because I'm plugged in. Let's try that again, and then I'll just wave it at you to show that it worked. Or I've just totally broken things. Cool. I'm just getting a black video screen from that, which is great. We'll skip past that then. Basically, you can change from facing mode user to environment, and that will give you the option to pick that camera based on without having to enumerate the devices and get the user to select first or try and find which of the front and back cameras are. Cool. But once you have asked for that permission, even on iOS, then when you run enumerate devices, they will tell you labels about it and allow you to select. At that point, you get IDs for the devices. They're horribly complicated, and because they're trying to stop you also fingerprinting users. It's quite a lot of privacy goes into this whole camera thing, as you can imagine. But once we have one of those device IDs, we can set it as the device ID here. Unless, of course, again, you're Safari, where you... I don't know what the problem is, but it turns out actually there are some extra options you can hand to things like this to say, in this case, that you exactly want this device. If you don't do that on Safari, you don't get the device. It just gives up on you. Every other browser worked. And so that's quite cool. And then there are more constraints. Hold on, I was going to show... it's not going to... I was going to show a demo of that, but because the phone is disagreeing with me, that's not going to work for now. I will have this... I'll have my demo application up online to play around with another time, because that is really sad that I'm getting just a black screen out of my device. Anyway... we can do this, then we can add more constraints. This becomes important if you are doing a video chat and you want to restrain the width and height of the video, particularly if you're trying to, if you only want to send a smaller video. We're just talking about image optimization, but this is kind of your live video optimization, where you can choose the width and heights. This is quite cool. You can set mins, maxes, and then an ideal value, the one you want. And as we can see, other things we have like kind of exact user facing mode and a max frame rate of 30. This is all really useful. There is one thing to worry about, which is the overconstrained error. Particularly a fan of is Firefox in this case. I know this talk is pretty much me just complaining about different browsers and how they deal with things. But particularly in Firefox, if you do not get the, if you try and make an exact width and height for a video, if you say, I absolutely need this to be 640 by 400, Firefox will go, nope, can't do that. It has its ideas and it needs to sit within the, in kind of a min-max situation. Otherwise, it will just not. So that's what we get from Firefox. What I think is more interesting at this point is screen sharing. Like I said, I gave a talk about WebRTC kind of a few years ago, and one of the things people always asked was, can you screen share? Can you do, like, because once you've got a video chat, then you want to share your screen and do work and things like that. Screen sharing, and the answer at the time was, no, you can't. The browsers have disagreed on it, and they really don't want you to do it. But that's changed, which is kind of cool. And so this is not a nice big row of green ticks, sadly. This one's quite fun. You can do screen capture in browsers, but Chrome's weird. Opera doesn't. Firefox is also weird. Safari won't let you. And Edge gets it right. Which I was never expecting. But, I mean, the Edge browser is a great browser these days. But of all of the browsers that have been doing this kind of stuff, Edge decided to actually go with the standard on this, and the other ones were like, no. So let's talk about it. getDisplayMedia, that's the standard. It's a method on the Navigator object. This doesn't fall under media devices like getUserMedia, but getDisplayMedia is all you need. And this is all you have to do to call it. Now it pops up permissions, and we'll see it in a sec. But you get the display media, and then you have a stream of display media, much like any other video stream that you will have seen if you've used getUserMedia. And it just works. But that's not the case with Chrome. Chrome has messed around with this for quite a while. Screen sharing is another privacy concern, of course. If you are stealing somebody's screen, you can get anything out of them, even if you're in a background tab. and they're now using their bank in another tab. Like, it's important to know that somebody is using your screen. So Chrome initially used this, made it available as a plugin. What's quite nice is that, and I know this is small, but this is all the code you need in a Chrome plugin in order to capture somebody's screen. The important bit is this bit, which just says chrome.desktopcapture.chooseDesktopMedia. And you can give it some options, and if it works, the rest of it is just sending back that response. And then on the actual front end, you can call to your plugin, and the response you'll get a stream ID, which we use here. We get stream ID and then pass that into getUserMedia. It's kind of a weird, odd way around it, but it works. Let me show you it working, actually. Oops. So what do we have? I have a button which I'm going to unshow for share screen. Here we go. Oh, this requires us to actually connect. This will be interesting. Cool, so if I refresh that and access and set that one to connect, I'm just going to do it from the same browser. Hopefully that will happily connect to each other. So right, I have the share screen button. I just need them to actually connect. They're not going to do that. This is what it looks like. This is what happens in Chrome. And we get this option. We get this option to share your screen. If you have more than one screen plugged in, you can choose more than one of them. And then when we do that, it should be sharing over to the other browser tab. There it is. Haha. And then we get screens off into infinity. When you're testing on your own, it's always hilarious to be doing this, but and it always looks bad. But this is it in Chrome. That's via the plugin, which is quite cool. It works. And I can stop sharing the screen. Stop that. And it's gone again. I'm back to the video. I'm glad this is actually working now. Cool. So there's plugins, and then there's non-standard behavior. Firefox. Firefox decided that they would actually implement screen sharing as part of the native platform, but they went and did it in a non-standard way. Instead, they used the media constraints that we kind of saw just briefly. We actually have media constraints getting involved instead. And so you have to pick the media source of screen, and then you will get the screen. It's quite useful. The real problem with that is actually testing for the availability of that, because they made this available as an API, and then they whitelisted a bunch of sites that could use it. And so for a long while, you could do screen sharing in Firefox as long as you were on that list. And if you weren't, you had to install a plugin to add yourself to that whitelist. From Firefox 52, they made it available. And so you can always test for the constraints that are supported in media with this kind of media devices get supported constraints method. And if the media source is on there, then you'd think you could use it. But if you were not on that whitelist, you couldn't. So we actually have to do a horrible user agent matching and user agent version matching in order to actually check whether you can use this in Firefox. God, why? It does work, though. And if I bring this out of full screen and go to this, I'll disconnect from one of these tabs. There we go. Let's go back in here and connect. And Firefox, let's go on, let's connect. Oh no, it's going to give me the option anyway. You can see it. You've seen the screen sharing. Oh, Firefox gives you its classic pop-up for permissions, which allows you to pick the screen, see what it's doing before you actually share it, which is kind of useful. And then when we allow that, that's going to go off and be there in Chrome. There we are. Hooray! So Firefox, whilst it takes a completely different route to get to this, it's still possible. Disconnect. You just have to do some really awkward checking. I feel dirty looking at this code. That's why I wanted to show it to you. Standards, on the other hand, as I said, the getDisplayMedia method is coming. It's coming soon. And what I'm really excited about is that I didn't know this, but I decided I'd check it in Canary. And if I access there and connect, in Canary, it actually works. So it's living in Chrome Canary already. And if I share the screen here, that is using the now getDisplayMedia thing. And you can tell the difference, actually. You might not have noticed, but here it's actually giving me entire screen application window or Chrome tab. So it actually gives you a bunch of options as to what to choose here as well. So I can actually just pick a window or just pick a tab, and that will also share, and that sends it off to the other Chrome. And there we go. That is Chrome Canary sharing to Chrome via the standards-based getDisplayMedia, which I am just thrilled that they're doing. And I tell you why they're doing it? Because disconnect everything. Stop that. So what happened was earlier this year, for also security and privacy reasons, Chrome decided that they would stop allowing people to inline install extensions. It was a really useful thing if you had built yourself a video chat thing like this, and then you wanted to have people share a screen. You pick that, and your code could then check, is the plugin available? Can we actually do this? And if it wasn't, you can just put somebody through an inline installation of the plugin, which is pretty cool, except they took it away because people were using that for bad things. In the meantime, everybody who'd written a commercial video chat platform kind of put their hands up and went, you just ruined everything, stop that. So they reprioritized getDisplayMedia. There has been a gap, though. You can no longer do inline plugin installation right now, and it's still only in Canary, the standards-based way of doing getDisplayMedia. So there are some people there that are kind of still annoyed about that, but we're getting there. Standards take a while. They are important to get right. And whilst this one is right, they're also difficult to implement, I guess. But it's getting there. The important thing is all of these browsers are now catching up and allowing us to do things via the standard way and via that web platform. And finally, I wanted to talk about web audio. It's actually one of my favorite APIs, and nothing to do with video at all, as it happens. It's one of my favorite APIs. The fact that you can make sound on the web by doing pretty much this. In fact, if I was to just copy this, turn my sound back on, and go into DevTools and paste that, it's going to make, I think that's an A, right? We can make sound in our browsers without anything else getting involved. Not great sounds, if you're me. I like to leave that to actual musicians. But the Web Audio API has this powerful ability to create anything you want in terms of sound with it. You can load other sound files, which is pretty useful. But creating sounds and then messing with those sounds is all part of this. As I said, though, I'm not a musician. I'm not very good at actually making sounds. It's also really good for analyzing audio, which is one of my favorite parts of this, because I think we can make some fun visualizations with that kind of thing. We can re-implement Winamp if we really wanted to. Although I hear Winamp's re-implementing Winamp, which is it's good news. It's coming back. But what I really like of this is actually to use it to improve the experience of applications and things like that. And one of the things that's always bugged me with video chats anywhere in the world is the "Can you hear me?" section of the chat. There's never been a conference or video conference or anything where everybody hasn't said at one point, "Can you hear me?" And we can change that because we can show people whether they are being heard or not. And I'm going to find, what have I got here? Not that one, this one. If I were to reload my application, and what we can see now next to the connect button is a little just visualization of my audio, which is great. So I can tell that I'm not muted, which is always a problem. But when we actually get to the other side of it, we can unmute this, we can undo this side, and now reloads, connect that. Let's do it with Canary, why not? Get rid of the sound. So I've turned my sound off, which is also another important part of this, I think. Once they connect, which they don't want to do now, It's cool because you get a live view of me worrying about what's going on the screen. All right, let me just refresh all that, see if we're still working. So get my media, connect, check for errors, no errors. No connection though, that's the worrying. Have I been kicked off the internet? That's really the question, isn't it? Maybe I have. Sorry? Yeah, I know, but I re-signed up to it only recently. But I can put my personal hotspot on and try that instead, because I want to see this working. Yeah, cool, the Wi-Fi has quit out on me, but my phone is there to save the day. Don't look at my password. Oh, you're a new phone. Have you got a different password? Oh, the password's password. All right. Right? Let me... It's really giving a good go, though. There we go. The password is, yeah, apparently password. That's not my... I haven't fixed that, apparently. This time it should join and... Oh, I did. We are connected. All right, we're back on the internet. Probably. Now we're connecting. Cool. All right. All I'm trying to show is actually that at the end of this, not only do we get my sound from myself, but as soon as the other side joins, and it looks weird because we're sharing a microphone there, but what we can tell is that the other side is also speaking. As we can see, it's happening the other way around in this case. My remote stream is now sending more of the data. Apparently I'm not talking locally. But if you can see that working, if you can see somebody is making noise and you can't hear them, that means your speakers are off. If you can see that they're talking, but the audio thing is not making any noise, they are on mute. And I think this would just save time and effort, probably millions of dollars a year, of people not spending the first 10 to 15 minutes of their meetings working out whether they can hear each other. And it's super easy to actually implement that kind of thing. We start with this analyzer node, and then I don't actually have the rest of the code for it. We start with the analyzer node. I have written a blog post about this recently, which I will publish, and I only have 2 minutes left on the slides, so I will get that out with the slide deck. But making that little animation based on the incoming sounds is around 50 lines of code at most, and most of that is drawing onto a canvas. So, as I said at the start, I think the web platform is kind of an amazing creation, and it's getting there with more of these extreme kind of features like web, like video sharing, screen sharing, all that kind of stuff. We are getting there with the support, and every time the web platform like this improves, I think like our powers as web developers improve as well. Now, I know some of this might have been only interesting if you're training a video chat application, but maybe hopefully you did pick up something from this today which is actually kind of interesting and that you can use again in the future. I highly recommend looking into the Web Audio API. That's a lot of fun to play with. Media constraints and swapping cameras and things like that, that doesn't have to be hooked up to a video chat. I want to see more camera-based applications that are on the web, because why do we have to download a whole nother app just to put filters on something or whatever? The web has this power, and so do you in your hands. I look forward to finding out what you're going to build with that. But in the meantime, that's everything I think that they don't currently tell you about video in the browser. And I'm done. Thank you very much for listening.